Next, we are thrilled to welcome Noelle Silver, founder of the AI Leadership Institute, an AI executive at IBM, and an AI MVP at Microsoft. Noel Silver is a multi-award-winning technologist and entrepreneur who specializes in helping companies with emerging technology, cloud services, artificial intelligence, and Web 3.0. She has led teams at NPR, Microsoft, IBM, and Amazon Alexa. She is a consistent champion for the public understanding of the ethical use of AI and the tech fluency based on her work, building some of the largest AI models in the world. She is the founder of the AI Leadership Institute and is an AI executive at IBM. She teaches women and people of color how to use the power of technology and influence to achieve success in business and in life. She was recently awarded with the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional Award for Artificial Intelligence, as well as VentureBeat's Women in AI Responsibility and Ethics Award. Noelle will talk about how to build responsible applied AI solutions at scale. Noelle, thank you. Mike is yours.
Wonderful. So excited to be here with you all. Thank you so much. I am really looking forward to having an opportunity to share some of my lessons learned, I suppose, as we go along this journey together for the next 30 or so minutes. I do want to invite you to think, as I begin to present some ideas, they might be new to you, but more importantly, they might be things you haven't really thought of before. I always like to hear your perspective. Ask any questions that you might have. I'm going to try and reserve as much time as possible so we can really have a bit of a dialogue at the end around any questions that come up. But the concept that we're talking about here is responsible AI at scale. And really what that means is that when we build AI that eventually will impact and be used by millions or even billions of people, when we do that, we have to think a little bit differently about how we create it. It's not a standard way of building solutions like maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, right? Where we could build a product and have a roadmap and have features that we would release based on our customers thinking, saying that they want it. Now, when we build artificial intelligence, we may actually be building a solution for users that we've never even thought to support or serve. And so it's our responsibility to do a bit of a better job on the front end in making sure that the data we use in these AI solutions, that in the teams that we build, that they're inclusive. And so I'll be talking to you about a lot of the lessons learned that I've gained along the way in my journey. So I am Noelle Silver. I did recently get married, so now I'm a Russell. I'm super proud to be so. I am the founder of the AI Leadership Institute, and I founded that company about, I guess it's now almost 7 years ago. And it came out of my journey at Amazon Alexa. I was an early member of the Amazon Alexa skills team. I was employee 10, right? It wasn't a big team. There wasn't even a VP involved, right? It was a director who hired some people to just get this thing started. And it was a really interesting time because at Amazon, right, Jeff Bezos had sent out this email saying, who's interested in joining this kind of cool new tech? And many people were like, I'm not so sure about that, right? Many people were actually kind of reeling from the failure of a recent product at Amazon, the Fire Phone. I don't know how many of you remember that product. But it's interesting when you try to go down this path of a new technology, what ends up happening, right, is that you end up running into not necessarily technical challenges, but what I now have come to know as socio-technology challenges, right? The cultural shift, the paradigm shift that often has to happen inside an organization. So I'm excited to share some of these lessons that I've learned, the journey with you. Now, before we get started, I want to share with you a video. It's a very quick video, but it's a video that really started my career after Amazon Alexa and all the amazing things that we did there. I ended up going to Microsoft. And the day that I started at Microsoft, this video launched as part of its marketing. And it really does put together all of the ideas that I have, my philosophy around building responsible AI at scale. So I'm going to take a moment now and let you watch it, and then we'll get started with the rest of the discussion.
Today, right now, you have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. Think about that. That's what technology really is. It's possibility, it's adaptability, it's capability. But in the end, it's only a tool. What's a hammer without a person who swings it? It's not about what technology can do, it's about what you can do with it. You're the voice, and it's the microphone. When you're the artist, it's the paintbrush. We are living in the future we always dreamed of. We have mixed reality that changes how we see the world, and AI empowering us to change the world we see. You have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. So here's the question: what will you do with it?
Every time I see that video, and I've seen it hundreds of times, I'm like, yes, this is amazing. Let's go. Right? Let's build something awesome. And so I'm excited to share with you the exact philosophy of that video, which is we've got a lot of technology at our fingertips. We have more applied AI models available today than ever before in history. But what are we going to do with it? How do we use these tools to make a better world, a better society, a better culture? And those are the lessons that I've learned that I'll be sharing with you. But before I do that, I always like to start by explaining to you a little bit about where I came from and how I got here. I won't spend a lot of time here, but I do have a family. I mentioned I recently got married. These are our 4 amazing kiddos. And my son really catapulted my technology journey into what is today artificial intelligence. But back then it was more about automation and accessibility. My son Max has Down syndrome. He was born 17 years ago. And back then they were telling me that the only options for him to have a good life were for him to be in an institution that could take care of him, or for him to be put up for adoption and given to a family that is more capable than a first-time mom, a young mom who might not know what to do. But as a technologist, I knew that there was more. I knew that there was something that I could do. And I started, for those of you who connect with me on LinkedIn, you'll see I crafted my journey to go after those companies and work with the companies that were doing the biggest and making the biggest impact in this space, right? Of building technology that can improve his life. Later, as I joined the Amazon Alexa team in 2014, my dad, who you see there on the screen as well, he ended up getting into a car accident. Actually, he was walking across the street and a distracted driver hit him. He suffered a traumatic brain injury and went from being a Marine that ran every single day to really aging overnight, 20 years. He couldn't use a phone. He couldn't really use a computer anymore. So the world, I had to make sure he could interact with the world very similarly, but really through his voice. That became our vehicle. And because of my work on Alexa, I started thinking about these 2 audiences, right? Kids, children with special needs, our aging community. But here's the funny part about that. When I first started on Alexa, it was a kitchen device on Amazon Alexa, right? We weren't building a speech pathology tool. We weren't building a patient out care platform, right? We were building a device for the kitchen. We were building a device that would have timers and maybe some skills to make a kitchen experience better. But this is where I learned the most, which is how important it is for us to have this kind of sense of diverse perspective, someone in the room who will raise their hand and say, but I have a son who might need this. Could we think differently, right? I have a dad who could really use this technology in a different way. Can we think about what that might mean for him? And so, I'm just 2 perspectives, so many other perspectives out there. Now, I've had a good run over the last few years. I always like to mention, I was awarded. I always like to give a huge amount of gratitude to those who have, given me any kind of accolades that help me do the work that I do. I was the Project Voice. They had a conference called the Alexa Conference years ago, and I was their very first executive of the year. But more recently was awarded the AI MVP award at Microsoft. And I think one of my favorite awards that I've gotten has been around the questions that I ask in organizations, the uncomfortable questions, right? And that's really the journey of many of us, is like, our job is to ask uncomfortable questions. And as a result, VentureBeat awarded me a responsibility and ethics award for being willing to stand up and say, are we sure we want to do this? Is this real? Who are we hurting when we do these types of things? So very grateful for all of that. I am AWS certified. I like cloud in general. I think all the cloud providers, they're like my children. I love them all. So I'll try to really in this conversation be a bit agnostic. Now, before I go on, I want to very quickly share with you a quote, and this actually has an important message. Just allow me to do something that's not typically done, right? I shouldn't really read you a slide, but I'm going to, because it has a really interesting point that I want to make. One, this quote was actually shared by some of the biggest leaders in the technical world, right? I remember Jeff Bezos sending out a tweet and saying that he had this quote on his fridge and he encouraged his children to read it every day. So I'm going to very quickly read it with you, but it has a really interesting story that I think is impactful to how we build technology in the future and really today. So what is success? We often, all of us, right? We often think about how do we measure success in our lives? What is success? To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate the beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because we have lived. This is to have succeeded. Now, I love this quote because Jeff Bezos and IBM leadership and Red Hat leadership and Microsoft leadership, I've seen them all identify and resonate with this, which gives me hope. But the reality is that Ralph Waldo Emerson is the poet laureate that made this poem popular. If you Google it, that's what you'll see. However, if you go to page 2 of Google, maybe even page 3, you will actually find out that Ralph Waldo Emerson wasn't the original author. It was Bessie Anderson Stanley. And somehow over the years, the decades, her name was lost in attribution, which isn't, that happens, obviously. But here is the message that it gave to me as an AI engineer, as a citizen data scientist, right? Is that oftentimes we are creating a picture, telling a story with data that a company or the world will use to make different choices. And it's our job to maintain the lineage of those decisions, of where that data came from. And that's really at the heart of responsible AI, right? Our job is to maintain the Bessie Anderson Stanleys of the world, to make sure that those very important critical details are not lost on page 2, that we keep them top of mind so that when we begin to change how we use this quote, where it's used, when we use it, how often I use it on stage, that I am authentic to the original intention, right? The original data set, if you will. So I love this quote mainly because it does remind me that often what I'm reading and what I'm looking at and what I'm inspired by may not be the whole truth. And it's my job as someone who cares about responsible development of technology solutions that I ask more questions. I ask why and where did this come from? And where did we get the data? And how did we train the model? That's part of my responsibility as an engineer. Now, as you saw in the video, we have more power at our fingertips than ever before, right? We've got hundreds of applied AI models available to you. These applied AI models, what that means is that companies like Microsoft, IBM, with Watson, Google, Amazon, you name it, they've used billions of dollars to invest in building models. But they didn't just keep those models to themselves. They did at first. But they didn't keep those models to themselves. They chose to democratize those models, to make them accessible to people who don't have the same skill set as those who created it. So applied AI means that I now, as a citizen data scientist, as someone who wants to leverage data science to bring value to a company, I can go in and I can leverage computer vision or real-time translation or decision making, knowledge mining, right? Entity resolution. I can use these technologies without having to actually know the language it was written in, the algorithm that it represents, in order to leverage it in my solution. And that is hugely powerful. But as you know, and I'll ask you all to think about this, and maybe some of you will know the answer to this right away, right? But with great power, there's a quote, right? With great power comes great. Hopefully some of you instantly knew the answer and we're friends and we watch the same shows, right? But with great power comes great responsibility. And I, of course, learned that in Spider-Man, but for those of us who, maybe read that by Voltaire at one point, there is great responsibility when we are given these easy buttons to make the world better, right? We have to really understand. Remember, as I mentioned with Bessie Anderson Stanley, my job is to understand the lineage of everything that I use. One of my biggest concerns is when I go into an exhibition hall at an event that I'm speaking at, I will see a sea of booths, and all of the booths have AI enabled, AI powered, right? AI infused. What does that mean? What does that mean? Like, what do you mean when you say that? And it's my responsibility as a consumer of these models to encourage and really ask those entities to tell me how they're leveraging AI. More importantly, how did you get the results that you're getting? Whose data are you using? Do you have permission to use that data? Are you paying for that data? Right? Are you inclusive in that data set? Does it represent the audience I'm presuming it represents? Many times in AI, I will tell you one of the sad and fun things I do every day is I have a Google alert called AI gone wrong. And it automatically scours the internet for AI stories of failure. I like failure. I think failure is incredible because I learn so much so fast when things go wrong. But with AI, our failures, if we don't scope them and have those failures in the right stage of development, those failures can impact people's lives. They can change their ability to get healthcare, to get credit, to buy a home. That's, in my mind, where my responsibility kicks in. We can use a lot of the technology I'm about to share with you to change the world that you see, right? To give you an opportunity to do so much more. And I'm going to walk you through 3 principles that I have learned in building some of the largest AI models in the world. One of them is, I mentioned already, the importance of an inclusive engineering team. It's the number one thing, people who have built AI that's more than 2 years old and have realized they're in production, have realized that they've done maybe something that infringes on people. The number one thing they say is, man, I wish we had more inclusive team. I wish we had more people on the team that represented our customers. I wish we spent more time in user experience. Inclusive engineering doesn't just mean ethnicity, right? Brown people and women, right? Ethnicity is part of it. Gender is part of it, but it's more about creating a symphony, right? Having a symphony of people, of experiences. It's about neurodiversity, people who think differently, who think fast and think slow. There's a book now out around this topic, right? We want to have people who are single parents. We want to have people who are caring for their parents. We want to have people who have 4 children, some that choose not to have children, some that have cats as children, right? We want all of them because when we build a product, they will be the one in the room that says, have we thought about using it in this way? Have we thought about what it will do to people in this way? Inclusive engineering is a huge part of this solution. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is another lesson that we learned at Alexa in the early days. I used to have a shirt that said voice first. I used to be I was a huge proponent of voice first, voice everywhere, right? And it's interesting now to look back on it because yes, that was important for adoption, especially we're bringing something new the world had never seen before, talking to a device. Now it's a bit ubiquitous, but back then nobody had done it before. Certainly not at massive scale. And so I understand why we had to take that approach. But in hindsight, as a responsible practitioner, I now realize that multimodality is really where the power is. Thinking about voice, but how can I use voice augmented in virtual reality? How can I use my voice to control devices? How can I use my voice to control a screen? Voice is just part of the equation. And most importantly, when you choose a voice first approach, you end up immediately excluding people who can't use their voice. And that as a responsible builder, right? I'm like, oh, I'm not, okay, I understand that. What if in my world, we have over 100, I have over 100 devices in my house that are voice activated, right? Because my family needs that in order to do what they do. So I think it's very, very important that every technology think about building a voice interface. But then I also have people in my house who have speech impediments and really want to be able to use gesture control, right? Moving their hands or being able to signal to a device, right? Using sensors. There's so many different ways for us to build solutions that make an impact. So I encourage you to not just think about a computer vision model or a natural language model as an only entry point into a solution, but think multimodal. How do I combine all of these models together to create a richness in the solution that many people have never seen before? Now, I've talked about this, of course, but I'd like to reiterate, I do believe that ethics is hard to really put a handle on, right? Many people are like, ethics, oh, how do I do ethics? Whose ethics, right? That's always my question. When somebody says they're an ethical, an AI ethicist, I'm always like, whose ethics are they? Are they your personal ethics? Are they your company's ethics? Right? I always think about, the study on chocolate. Like chocolate is, amazing for you and will do hundreds of thousands of good health benefits. And it's sponsored by, a chocolate manufacturer, right? Like whose ethics is driving the questioning? And so I don't really focus on ethics anymore, though I personally think a lot about it, about what I'm ethically concerned about. But professionally, I focus on responsibility. I focus on what can I be accountable for in order to build software that serves everyone. So in order to do that, and this is, again, when I say scale, the only way to build software that scales to hundreds of million or billions of people is to make sure that when you build it, you actually serve that many people. And so often we build solutions that are very siloed to a persona in marketing, to a niche. And that actually will create a scenario, especially with data and AI, where we build a solution that is so narrowly focused, it actually infringes upon a bunch of the people we're hoping to serve. So our responsibility is to think bigger, right? Set a larger intention when we're creating this software, to create a room full of people who can raise their hand and invite new opportunities for us to think about how we might use the technology that we're building way beyond what we're capable of thinking of at the moment. I'll tell you today, Amazon Alexa has invested in the elder care space. They have invested in the classroom. They have invested in healthcare. But that wasn't how it started. And what a different path we might have taken had we asked different questions at the very, very beginning. So I encourage you to do that as you go through. One of the last principles that I have learned is that there is no, many of us, there are some of you that are are specialists, we'll say, right? Are data scientists, mathematicians, statisticians, are classically trained in the art of algorithm development. But there's a whole bunch of us that are passionate about this work that don't have that classical training, that don't necessarily need it, right? We need a symphony of talent in order to build this technology in a way that everyone is served. And so I encourage those of you who are working in this space or want to work in this space, the technique that I use to get acquainted with artificial intelligence is to actually build it, right? To build the technology yourself. And so I'm going to walk you through some use cases of where you can get started right now. If you don't know how to code, I encourage you learn at least a little bit. There's lots of ways to do that. There's a freecodecamp.org. You can go and learn in a weekend you can learn enough code to build a POC, to build a project, to get your hands dirty, if you will, right? To get your fingers on a keyboard and see the power of these frameworks. So I'm a big believer in learning by doing. I do think, though, in combination with that, I also think there's an incredible value when you bring the person who has the problem, the pain, and you sit them next to the person who knows how to use the technology to solve that pain. Oftentimes, the person who knows the technology is not extremely close to or an expert in the domain they're solving the problem for. And it's funny because sometimes that person ends up being the sole driver of that project. We don't do enough to involve those that actually have the problem or are experiencing friction as a customer, as a product owner, as an employee. So here are some of the areas in the world that you can get involved in. And I think this is some of my favorite components, right, of learning to leverage AI is where we can do some good. These enterprise scenarios are not just made up. I didn't just throw them on a screen. We ended up at Microsoft doing a research study and communicating to about 400 CEOs and executives at large technical or large companies that were implementing this technology. These were the use cases that were prioritized over the next 3 to 5 years. So, and I actually have now seen 3 of these use cases show up over and over and over again. Customers are asking for help in building AI with these specific solutions in mind. But I think it's helpful because you'll get a chance to see this deck. I also have a set of resources for building samples in each one of these. But here are the 3 resources that or 3 areas that I've seen the most velocity and the highest amount of impact within a business. One, conversational AI, right? How do I make sure that I'm creating a conversation with my customer, with my employees, and then using that conversation, right, where it's not a human to human conversation, I can create an intelligent agent that can actually serve 80% of the needs of my customers, of my employees, and they can be happy doing it. It does require we have to build a delightful solution. We have to spend the time and effort in conversational design to make it useful, right? I think that's what happened with the chatbot days, if some of you might remember, right? It didn't go so well because we didn't do a good job of designing the experience. We let a technologist build a chatbot and push it into production, right? So we missed the opportunity to really connect with those who had the most friction and make their lives easier. Another area is knowledge mining, being able to take structured and unstructured data and make sense of it. This is the future. Almost every company I am in has structured and unstructured data that they don't know what to do with, and they don't have enough data scientists to write original algorithms to process that information. So we need to equip these companies. You need to be one of the people who can help equip these companies, right, with the ability to curate insights from what they are already saving every single day. So let me give you we're going to go in and take a look at some questions here and see if you have any questions about this. But this is just a high-level overview of some of the models. And these are similar models on Amazon, on Azure. I was given an award by Azure, so I tend to, I like Azure stuff. I like Azure AI. I really like their responsible AI practices. But these are similar at SageMaker, on Amazon, at GCP, and Vertex AI. The world is moving towards how do we equip our web and application developers with the ability to do more and leverage the amazing work being done by data scientists every day. This is the beginning of that. Now, these are pre-trained models. And what that means is that applied AI is leveraging models that are pre-trained. This is why I mentioned at the beginning the importance of understanding the lineage of data, right? Okay, I get I'm using a pre-trained model, but where did that come from? Who did you train it on? And does it represent my audience? Organizations like Microsoft have now created custom versions of some of these models so you can custom train it on your demographic, on your customer, on your use case. That is where the magic is, right? Combining a pre-trained model with your custom data to create a model that you can use much more quickly than writing it yourself is extremely powerful, but is customized to your organization and you own the IP. That is beautiful, number one, but that is the future of what, we're not going to be building models from scratch as a business, right? Most of us who are in retail or healthcare or industry or manufacturing, right? That is not the future, right? We're not going to be building models from scratch. Some of us will, but most of us, we're going to be leveraging these models from a data science organization and using them, infusing them inside of our applications. So vision, speech, language, I mean, the world is open. We've never had more tools at our disposal before. And I'll focus on one because it's my favorite, conversational AI. Conversational AI is one of the easiest. So for those of you who right now are like, wow, this is so cool, there's so many different ways I could get started, I want to encourage you to build a no-code solution. I want to encourage you to go in and just build a AI-driven application. And you could probably guess where I'm going with this, but if not, I have built over 100 applications for Amazon Alexa. Several of them are so popular right now. I've 2 million plus unique users of the applications that I've built. And it was as an independent developer, not classically trained. I do not have a PhD in statistics. I've never, I shouldn't say that. I was gonna say I've never written an algorithm, but that's not true. I have written algorithms before, but none that are in production, right? I did it for my own education. But I come from a pretty humble beginning, and I've now built AI that impacts people's lives. And you could do the same thing without writing a single line of code. It's a great way to get started. So you can see here, blueprints.amazon.com. Some of the work that I did at Amazon Alexa was to create an opportunity for people to build Alexa experiences without having to write the code. Just as a beginning, right? A way of understanding how important the content is, the context is, before jumping in and building a custom skill. So as we move in, hopefully we've got some questions waiting. As we move into questions, I just want to encourage you to go check out blueprints.amazon.com, build an Alexa skill, launch it to the world. You can be in 100 million homes by next weekend, right? Try it out. See what it feels like to actually learn by doing, by building. I do believe in an open source world like these blueprints, right? Giving you as much as I can in order for you to build an empowered solution without maybe necessarily knowing all the tech. I believe in having an open mind. I think a lot of the concepts we're dealing with today require you to have an open mind. And of course, I'm a huge believer in empathy and compassion in these spaces, in thinking beyond, the profit center and into how do we not only generate profit in our businesses, but also help the world. And I think we can do both successfully. So I'm going to leave it on this page here with my contact information as we go in and start talking. Microsoft Ignite is right around the corner. I hope you all will join me. I'm speaking on a similar topic, but much more in-depth technically, and would love to have you there. But if you want, I'm doing a challenge to actually get you an AI certification. So for those of you on that path, you can join me there as well. Let's go in and see if we have any questions that I can, oh my gosh, so many. Holy mama, so many questions. Was there any that we wanted to focus on? Let's see. Oh goodness, should I just start at the top and work my way down? Okay, I'm going to start at the top. Neil, so awesome. Thank you for your question. Responsible frameworks for responsible AI are available to address some of the key areas in the industry. How, excuse me, can we ensure that the existing AI framework was developed responsibly? Such a good question. And do you think AI could also cause disruption in the future information age? I absolutely do. How can we manage the risks? Oh my gosh, this is like a 5-part question. Okay, so I'm going to take the first part first. I am a believer in community collaboration and consortiums. So I'm so interested in making sure that when I use something, it's not built in a vacuum. It's not owned by a single organization or company. That's why I love open source, right? Make it something that a consortium of organizations are working on. There's a group called the Partnerships on AI that you can go and take a look at. It's an organization. They have identified a set of tenants that you can build AI from. Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon are all part of this. I should say Meta are all part of this organization. So yeah, look to collaboration and community to validate, right? That's why academia is so successful, especially in data science, because of that peer review process. So I think that will help protect you in many ways. Would you recommend that responsible AI be implemented by a state government for the aim of bringing similar benefits to public sector companies? Oh, absolutely. One of the jobs that I have at AI Leadership Institute is to educate executive leadership in both private and public sector around how do we do an organizational shift, right? How do we change the paradigm, the mindset of our company to move, and of our government organization to begin thinking responsibly. So yes, absolutely. I see some government organizations, it often depends on leadership, moving in this direction, asking these questions and bringing in people like myself and the other amazing speakers that have been in this webinar to help advise them on how to move forward. Should limits be placed? Thank you, Jenalyn, I think. Should limits be placed on the intelligence and autonomy of AI applications? Like how far should we actually let them go in terms of usage? Great question. I actually don't believe that we should put limits on human ingenuity, right? And if human ingenuity is going to be improved through the use of AI, yes. One of the things I know, a Google researcher recently came out and said, actually, I think there was a collection of them, that we are building Skynet, if you know the reference, right, in Terminator, that we are building AI that's becoming so powerful and using reinforcement learning that it can actually reinforce itself. And it's very much like war games, right? It can change the game so that it wins, but it winning could actually hurt humanity. These are the ethical discussions that we're having at the highest level of many organizations. And yeah, there should be guardrails around what we do. There's so many great use cases for using AI, especially applied AI. We don't necessarily need to build massive monolithic machine learning models that get increasingly more powerful, right? What are we using it for? Who is it helping? I think those questions help guide what we do and how we do it. Limits, though, it's hard for me to say because I wouldn't want to limit an invention that could come as a result of this technology that could change the world in a really positive way. I try not to operate from fear. Okay. How to use AI to augment human ingenuity. Oh my gosh, I think I just talked about that. Yeah, so these models augment human ingenuity, right? Being able to use conversational AI to extract sentiment from an incoming customer service request so that I can more accurately prepare to serve those customers better. That is the future. Reducing friction. Joselito, I love the question. Yeah, there's so much opportunity for that. But infusing transparency, fairness, and robustness into the process is a human endeavor. It's our job, not the AI, right? The AI is there. We've got hundreds of models to pick from. It requires you, the implementer, you, the idea, you person, right? You, the generator of the solution, to actually stop and make sure that you are adhering to these processes and these philosophies. How do I see, and this might be a good way to close, and I'm going to capture all these questions and I might do an AMA on LinkedIn Live. So please connect me on LinkedIn Live. I'd love to answer all of these. There's over 80 questions. So, oh my gosh, amazing. I've gone through like 10. How do you use AI? How do I see AI technologies 10 to 20 years from now? How will it impact the future of work? So this is a great way to close. I'm so excited and grateful for Wow AI putting this together and giving me a chance to share some of the lessons we've learned. There's not many models that have been in production as long as Alexa or Microsoft AI. And the lessons I've learned there is that sadly, 10 to 20 years from now, we may not be very far along from where we are today, unless we as the builders, right? We as the human ingenuity, we actually choose to build more elaborate skills, more elaborate applications, more elaborate experiences for our users. My hope is that we will start to realize that there are no silos, that we don't have Google shops and Microsoft shops, that we are building a cross-functional hybrid solution, that we're taking the best and brightest from anybody providing a meaningful service, and we're combining them to create a frictionless experience. I'll give you a very quick example in our last 30 seconds of an organization, an insurance company that's leveraging conversational AI to create a WhatsApp conversation with their customer. And in that, they're asking them for things that used to be sent in paper. They're now like, just take a picture of it and send it to us. Microsoft provides an applied AI model called Forms Recognizer. And for government forms, it provides 100% accuracy, right? So you can get 100% accuracy, extract the data, put it into the system, and get responses back to those insurance customers in minutes or days instead of months, right? Or weeks. It's a huge opportunity for us to combine technologies together. I hope you have enjoyed this session. I know it's quick. I hope you'll follow me on all the things. Connect with me either on Instagram. I'm Noelle AI everywhere. So you can go to LinkedIn and connect with me there. I will be doing an AI and AMA, Ask Noelle Anything. And I'll go through and answer some of these questions later today or early tomorrow. I'm such a fan of all of you taking the time to listen to this message. I hope you found something enjoyment out of it. And I'm just honored to be here. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the program. And I look forward to seeing you in another session soon.
By the way, you can also catch Noel later on the panel discussion about
today. That's right.
Yeah. But honestly, Noel, I have to jump in earlier, but I was mesmerized by all your insights. But we need to ask you with one last question. Who do you think is the most relevant questions? Who throw the most relevant question here? Because we will give them prizes.
Yes, I didn't get to this question, but it is incredibly important, and it leads to the really the inclusive nature of the business we need to create. We need to change the DNA of our industry, and so I really want to celebrate and thank Ivy Joan for asking this question about being a woman in AI, being a divergent thinker. How do we become successful? How do we stay the course when there's a lot of friction for diverse thinking, right? Or divergent thinking in this industry. So yeah, she asked a question, what is my single most important piece of advice? And my number one piece of advice, so this is my question, that's the one I like, but I'll give you that piece of advice, and it's persistence. That you identifying what your purpose is, what you're passionate about, what you care about. In my case, my children and my dad. What do I care about? And then having a English bulldog determination to go after solving the world's problems through that lens, right? But I am determined. No manager, no company is going to say, no, you can't do that, or we're not going to build that. I will keep being persistent until I see the results show up in the world. And I've seen it happen. I know that this persistence works, but sometimes it can be hard. So maybe I'll add to that, find a community of people that can support you through the process. And I'm definitely one of them. So nice to meet you. Thank you very much for that question.
So much, Noel. Looking forward to catch you on the panel discussion. That will be a very, very interesting AI. Thank you so much. And it's always mesmerizing. Never fail.
Thank you so much, everyone.